6 unpleasant things seniors do in old age that no one tells you about. If you're over 60 and starting to notice yourself doing things that embarrass you or push people away, you're not alone. These 6 behaviors show up in almost every senior's life, but nobody talks about them openly. Maybe you've caught yourself telling the same story 3 times in one evening, or found yourself criticizing everything around you, or discovered you can't throw away a single item from decades past. Perhaps you've noticed harsh words slipping out without your usual filter, or you're blaming family members every time you misplace something. These aren't character flaws or signs you're becoming a difficult person. They're predictable brain changes that have scientific explanations and practical solutions. Today I'm revealing what these 6 behaviors are, why they happen to almost everyone as we age, and most importantly, how to manage them before they damage your most precious relationships. By understanding the neuroscience behind these changes, you'll stop feeling ashamed and start feeling empowered. Whether you're experiencing these yourself or watching a loved one struggle with them, this video will transform how you understand the aging process. Welcome back to Life Advice for Older People. I'm here to discuss the uncomfortable truths about aging that families whisper about but never address directly. Today we're exploring 6 unpleasant behaviors that emerge in our golden years, and I promise understanding why they happen will change everything. By the end of this video, you'll know the science behind these changes, how to recognize them early, and most importantly, what you can do about them. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we're building a community where seniors get honest, practical advice. Now, let's dive into these 6 eye-opening truths that could transform your relationships and self-awareness. So, what happens when your brain's new information filing system starts, malfunctioning? You begin repeating the same stories, questions and conversations without even realizing it. This isn't just plain forgetfulness, it's actually your brain's way of trying to make sure that important information gets through. The science behind this, honestly, is fascinating. Your hippocampus, which is the part of your brain that manages memory formation, naturally shrinks as you age. When it can't properly tag conversations, as already discussed, your brain treats each telling as if it's the very first time. You genuinely believe you're sharing something fresh. And here's what makes it particularly tricky. The stories you repeat most are usually the ones that matter most to you. Your achievements, your concerns, or important updates about your family. Your brain prioritizes these memories, but it loses track of whether they've already been shared. But there's an emotional layer that really deepens the problem. Repetition often ramps up when you feel unheard or disconnected. Your subconscious mind keeps retelling those important stories because it senses the listener didn't truly absorb the message the first time around. The repetition becomes your brain's attempt to create the emotional connection or understanding you're seeking. The pattern also pops up during times of anxiety or major life changes. When you're worried about things like health issues, financial security, or say, family relationships, your mind just circles back to the same concerns again and again. It's a bit like a broken record that keeps skipping back to the most emotionally charged moments. There's also this social isolation factor. When your daily interactions become limited, the few conversations you do have start to carry extra weight. You end up unconsciously repeating stories because they represent your most meaningful social moments, and your brain wants to extract as much value as possible from these limited connections. The repetition loop also reveals your brain's desperate attempt to preserve identity. The stories you tell repeatedly aren't random. They're your greatest hits, the moments that define who you are. your military service, your parenting victories, your professional achievements. These repetitions are your brain's way of saying, "This is who I am, and I need you to remember me this way." There's a cognitive load factor too. Your aging brain has limited processing power, so it defaults to familiar, well-rehearsed narratives rather than generating new conversation topics. Its mental energy conservation, telling practiced stories, requires less cognitive effort than creating fresh dialogue. The timing of repetitions often correlates with medication effects, fatigue levels, or emotional states. You might repeat stories more frequently when tired, stressed, or taking certain medications that affect memory consolidation. Understanding these patterns helps both you and your family predict and manage repetitive episodes. The actionable part? Start keeping a simple conversation journal. Write down 3 key topics you discussed each day and with whom. This external memory system helps break the loop. Also, try the curiosity approach. Instead of launching into your story, ask first, "Did I mention what happened at the doctor's office?" Create conversation variety by preparing 3 different topics before social interactions. This gives you fresh material and reduces reliance on familiar stories. When you catch yourself mid-repetition, acknowledge it with humor. "I think I've told this one before, but it's clearly important to me." What story do you find yourself telling most often? That's your brain telling you what matters most in your life right now. Remember when you used to bite your tongue during awkward dinner conversations? Those days are disappearing fast. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for social filtering, weakens with age, making you say exactly what you're thinking without the usual editing process. This isn't rudeness, it's neuroscience. The neural pathways that once whispered, "Maybe don't mention her weight gain," or perhaps "skip the political rant," are firing less efficiently. Your thoughts now have a direct highway from brain to mouth, bypassing the usual social checkpoint stations. The brutal honesty emerges in predictable patterns. You'll comment on someone's appearance changes, share unsolicited opinions about their life choices, or bring up inappropriate topics during family gatherings. Your adult children cringe, but you genuinely don't understand why everyone seems so sensitive lately. Here's the deeper issue. This filter breakdown often coincides with feeling invisible or unheard in social situations. Your unfiltered comments become a subconscious way to reclaim attention and relevance in conversations where you feel overlooked. But there's a paradox at work here. The same brain changes that remove your social filters also reduce your ability to read social cues accurately. You miss the subtle eye rolls, the uncomfortable silence, or the topic changes that signal you've crossed a line. This creates a vicious cycle where your unfiltered comments increase just as your ability to gauge their impact decreases. The timing of these outbursts often reveals deeper emotional patterns. Your filter fails most dramatically when you're feeling tired, stressed, or emotionally triggered. Family gatherings become minefields because they combine multiple stressors: performance pressure, complex family dynamics, and often discussions about topics where you feel strongly but powerless. There's also a disinhibition component that goes beyond just losing filters. Your aging brain struggles with impulse control in general, making you more likely to interrupt, change subjects abruptly, or share inappropriate personal information. What feels like authentic self-expression to you registers as social chaos to others. The filter breakdown also connects to changing social hierarchies. Throughout your life, age and experience granted you social authority to speak your mind. Now that same directness feels inappropriate because your social status has shifted, but your brain hasn't adjusted to these new dynamics. The actionable strategy: Create a mental pause button. Before speaking, count to 3 and ask yourself, is this helpful or just honest? There's a crucial difference. Helpful honesty builds relationships. Raw honesty often damages them. Practice the sandwich technique for difficult conversations. Start with something positive. Add your honest observation, then end with affection or encouragement. Instead of, "You look terrible in that colour," try, "I love seeing you dressed up, though I think the blue shirt brings out your eyes better. You always look great when you feel confident." Develop warning signals with trusted family members. A gentle touch or code word that alerts you when your filter is slipping. Which social situation makes you most likely to speak without thinking? That's your warning zone. So your closets are overflowing, your garage is impassable, and you just can't bring yourself to throw away a single magazine from 1987. This isn't laziness, it's actually your brain's primitive survival mechanism kicking into overdrive as it senses mortality approaching. The psychology here is primal. When humans face uncertainty about their future, they instinctively gather resources. Your aging brain, well, it interprets physical decline as a threat signal, triggering an ancient scarcity mindset that quietly whispers, "You might need this someday." Every plastic container, every expired coupon, and even that broken appliance, they all become potential lifelines. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface. Each item you save carries emotional weight. Like, that dress represents your younger self, those tools symbolize your capability, and those papers prove your life mattered. Throwing things away feels a bit like erasing pieces of your identity, especially when you're already watching parts of yourself fade. The attachment gets even stronger because your changing memory makes objects into sort of external storage devices. That random receipt isn't just paper, it's proof of a day you lived. And those books, well, they're not just collecting dust. They're reminders of thoughts you once had. There's also a generational component that really compounds the problem. You lived through times when things were repaired, not replaced. Your parents survived the Depression, teaching you that waste was wasteful and everything had potential value. This make-do mentality served you well for decades. But it becomes a bit problematic when you mix it with age-related decision fatigue and reduced physical energy for organizing. The hoarding, in a way, also masks deeper fears about dependency. Keeping multiple backup items feels like insurance against having to ask for help. Those 15 flashlights aren't just redundant, they're your guarantee that you'll never have to call someone at midnight when the power goes out. But there's a more complex psychological layer. Your accumulation often represents unlived possibilities. That exercise equipment gathering dust isn't just clutter, it's your unfulfilled intention to get healthy. Those craft supplies aren't just taking up space, they're dreams of creative projects you still hope to complete. Discarding these items feels like admitting defeat, like acknowledging that certain versions of yourself will never emerge. The hoarding behavior also intensifies as your social world shrinks. Objects become companions when human connections diminish. That collection of ceramic cats isn't just decoration. It's consistent, non-judgmental company that never disappoints or moves away or dies. There's also a legacy anxiety component. You keep things because you hope they'll matter to someone after you're gone, but you're terrified that your children will see your treasured possessions as worthless junk. This creates a painful paradox where you hoard items to preserve their meaning while simultaneously diminishing their value through neglect and overcrowding. Here's your breakthrough strategy: the storykeeper method. Before discarding anything meaningful, record its story. Take a photo and write 2 sentences about why it mattered. This preserves the memory while freeing the physical space. Create 3 boxes: keep, donate, storykeeper. The storykeeper box gets photographed and journaled before items find new homes. You're not losing your past, you're curating it. Start with expired items, medications, food, warranties. These have clear discard dates that bypass emotional attachment. Then tackle duplicates. Keep your favorite coffee mug, donate the other 12. What's the oldest thing you're keeping just in case? That item holds the key to understanding your deepest scarcity fear. 4. The memory blame game. When you can't find your keys, it's suddenly everyone else's fault. Who moved my glasses becomes your daily battle cry, even when they're sitting on your head. This isn't about being difficult, it's your brain protecting your self-image when memory lapses feel threatening. The psychological defense mechanism is brilliant and destructive simultaneously. Your mind creates elaborate explanations for missing items because admitting I forgot where I put it feels like acknowledging cognitive decline. Blaming others preserves your sense of mental sharpness, while someone else becomes the villain in your confusion. This blame pattern, it follows these really predictable triggers. You'll find yourself accusing family members of hiding your medications, moving your mail, or maybe even rearranging your belongings. The accusations, they tend to intensify when you're tired, stressed, or feeling particularly vulnerable about your mental sharpness. Your loved ones, they sort of become scapegoats for your brain's filing system errors. But the deeper wound, if we're honest, is that each memory lapse chips away at your sense of independence and identity. For decades, you've been the capable one, the problem solver, the person others relied on, and now you're questioning your own mental reliability, and that's just, terrifying. Blaming others, even if just for a moment, temporarily restores the feeling that you're still sharp. It's just that everyone else is conspiring against you. But, there's a more sinister psychological twist here. The blame game often targets the people closest to you because, they feel safest to attack. You wouldn't accuse a stranger of moving your wallet, but you'll readily blame your spouse or your adult child. These accusations, they can really damage your most important relationships, precisely because you feel secure enough with these people to express your frustration and fear. The blame also tends to escalate when multiple family members are involved in your care. Each person might have a slightly different approach to helping you organize or clean, creating genuine confusion about where things were placed. Your brain latches onto these real inconsistencies and honestly amplifies them into elaborate conspiracy theories. There's also a control component to all of this. When so many aspects of your life feel out of control, your health, your independence, your future, controlling the narrative around missing items becomes, crucial. Blaming others gives you a sense of agency in situations where you feel powerless. The timing of these blame episodes often correlates with other stressors. After medical appointments, family conflicts, or reminders of mortality, your tolerance for memory failures just plummets. The missing reading glasses, they become the final straw in a day already full of evidence that your capabilities are, sadly, diminishing. So, here's your game-changing approach. It's called the investigation method. When something goes missing, try becoming a detective instead of a prosecutor. Say, let's solve this mystery together, rather than you hid my wallet. That simple shift moves you from accusation to collaboration. Another handy tip: create designated homes for your essential items and actually announce their locations out loud to yourself, like "I'm putting my keys in the blue bowl." Doing this engages multiple senses and honestly helps create much stronger memory anchors. Keep a lost and found log, and you'll start to discover your own patterns of where you typically misplace things. Most importantly, practice saying, "I can't remember where I put it," without any shame. That honest admission opens doors to help, rather than building walls of blame. So, what item do you lose most often? That right there is revealing your brain's biggest filing system weakness. Number 5, the stubborn technology resistance. Maybe you've become the person who refuses to use self-checkout machines, won't download apps, and still insists on paper bills. But this isn't just about being old-fashioned. It's actually your brain's protective response to cognitive overload and, fear of public humiliation. Here's the neurological reality. Your brain's processing speed naturally decreases with age, which makes new interfaces feel overwhelming. What takes a 20-year-old about 30 seconds to figure out might take you 5 minutes, and that gap can feel enormous in a world designed for digital natives. So your resistance isn't really stubbornness, it's self-preservation. The deeper issue here is competency anxiety. You've spent decades being the expert, the person others came to for solutions. Now, suddenly you're asking your grandchildren to explain basic phone functions, and honestly, that role reversal stings. Technology resistance ends up becoming a way to maintain your dignity by avoiding situations where your limitations could become a public spectacle. Your fear just compounds because technology mistakes feel permanent and expensive. Delete the wrong thing, click the wrong button, and you might lose precious photos or accidentally spend money. These stakes feel impossibly high when you're already managing other age-related losses of control. There's also a hidden emotional component, Technology represents everything that's changed without your input or consent. The world moved forward while you were busy living your life, and now, suddenly, you're expected to catch up instantly. This creates resentment. Why should you have to learn an entirely new language just to pay a bill or order food? The isolation factor, it multiplies the problem. When businesses eliminate human interaction in favor of apps and automated systems, your technology avoidance literally cuts you off from services you need. Banking, shopping, medical appointments, everything requires digital fluency you don't possess, creating a cycle where avoidance leads to exclusion. But here's the psychological twist. Your resistance often masks grief for a simpler world. You're not just avoiding technology, you're mourning the loss of personal service, human connection, and predictable systems. Every app download feels like surrendering another piece of the world you understood and navigated successfully for decades. The learning curve itself becomes a painful reminder of cognitive changes. Where you once mastered new skills quickly, technology learning now requires repeated practice and frequent assistance. This gap between your past learning abilities and current challenges creates shame that fuels further avoidance. But here's your empowerment strategy. The one thing rule. Master one new digital skill per month, not 10. Pick something personally meaningful, maybe video calling with distant family or online banking to maintain independence. Focus solely on that feature until it becomes automatic. Create a digital buddy system with a patient friend or family member who commits to weekly 15-minute sessions. No judgment, no rushing, just consistent practice. Write down the steps in your own words. Your brain retains information better when you translate instructions into familiar language. Reframe technology as a tool for maintaining the connections and independence you value, not a test of your intelligence. Every small digital victory builds confidence for the next challenge. What's one digital task you avoid that would actually improve your daily life? The critical commentary habit, it's become a part of you. You've turned into the person who critiques everything. From the waiter service to your neighbour's lawn care, even your daughter's parenting choices, and strangers' clothing at the grocery store. But, this constant criticism isn't about being mean. It's really your brain's way of trying to maintain relevance and control in a world where you feel increasingly powerless. It's a protective mechanism, psychologically speaking. As your physical abilities decline and your social circle shrinks, Offering unsolicited opinions becomes your way of staying engaged and proving that your mind is still sharp. Criticism, oddly enough, feels like participation, even though it might push people away. This habit, it intensifies, doesn't it? Your accumulated life experience has given you genuine expertise in so many areas. You've seen patterns, made mistakes and learned lessons that younger folks haven't encountered yet. And oh, the frustration builds when you see others making what seem like obvious errors you could prevent, but they just dismiss your input as outdated interference. This commentary, it also acts as a distraction from your own vulnerabilities. Focusing on others' flaws, well, it temporarily shifts attention away from your own declining capabilities. It's far easier to point out someone else's driving mistakes than to acknowledge your own vision problems. Now, there's a hidden trigger that most people miss. The critical commentary often spikes when you're feeling most invisible or undervalued. Your harsh observations become a desperate attempt to prove your relevance. See? I still notice things. My opinions still matter. The tragedy, though, is that excessive criticism achieves the opposite effect, making people avoid your company entirely. There's also a generational frustration at play here. You've lived through different eras with different standards. When customer service mattered, when quality lasted, when people took pride in their work. What seems like nitpicking to younger generations feels like necessary quality control to you. You're not being difficult. You're applying standards that once truly meant something. The criticism habit also emerges from accumulated disappointment. After decades of watching standards slip, promises broken and craftsmanship decline, you've developed a protective cynicism. Your critical eye becomes a shield against further disappointment. If you expect the worst, you won't be hurt when things fall short. But here's the emotional core: constant criticism often masks deep loneliness and fear of irrelevance. When no one seeks your advice anymore, criticism becomes your last way to feel intellectually engaged and socially connected, even if the connection is negative. Here's your transformation approach. Become a solution suggester instead of a problem pointer. When you notice something bothering you, ask yourself, can I offer a helpful alternative? Replace. That restaurant has terrible service with I know a place with amazing staff if you're interested. Practice the compliment first rule. Before sharing any criticism, find something genuine to praise. This creates receptiveness to your feedback rather than defensiveness. Channel your observational skills into positive mentoring. Instead of criticizing your grandson's job search, offer to share networking strategies that worked in your career. What do you find yourself criticizing most often? That topic reveals where you feel most expert and most frustrated about being ignored. Here's what changes when you understand these behaviors. Instead of feeling ashamed or defensive, you gain control. Instead of damaging relationships, you strengthen them through awareness. Consider Sylvia, who noticed herself becoming increasingly critical of everyone around her. Once she understood this was a common aging pattern triggered by loss of control in other life areas, she channeled that critical thinking into constructive feedback and became her family's trusted advisor rather than the person everyone avoided. Take Nathaniel, who was mortified when his son pointed out he'd told the same war story 3 times in one evening. Instead of retreating in embarrassment, he started keeping a conversation journal and transformed his storytelling into planned legacy sessions where family members could request specific memories. His repeated stories became treasured family history rather than annoying interruptions. Or consider Lucille, whose technology resistance was isolating her from grandchildren who communicated primarily through apps. She committed to learning 1 digital skill monthly, and now video calls with family across 3 states, maintaining connections that would have been lost to her stubborn avoidance. The breakthrough happens when you realize these aren't character flaws. They're predictable brain changes with workable solutions. Your hoarding instinct becomes curated memory keeping. Your social filter breakdown transforms into authentic communication with boundaries. Your memory blame game evolves into collaborative problem solving. The key is recognition leads to choice, and choice leads to better outcomes for everyone involved. These behaviors don't have to define your relationships or limit your connections. With understanding comes the power to adapt, and with adaptation comes the ability to age with dignity while maintaining the relationships that matter most. If this opened your eyes to patterns in your own life, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs this perspective. What behavior surprised you most? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want more honest conversations about aging gracefully, subscribe and click that notification bell. Which of these 6 behaviors do you recognize in yourself or a loved one? Your stories help our community realize they're not alone in these challenges. Don't forget to share your own strategies. What's worked for you might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear.